I don't either. I don't want to be...
This confrontation between Mayor Tom Ryan and a local developer revolves around this. Volunteers say they have a binding agreement with the city, giving them access to the building. Swayson says he spent thousands of dollars to help get the Charlotte Maritime Discovery Center off the ground.
The city never said in their letter to the program committee that they would change the locks. They simply said it wouldn't be open to the public. They seized our possessions, our property, changed the locks, and closed us down.
This is a copy of the letter signed by Mayor Ryan, a letter Swayson's group says is a binding legal contract.
We want to enforce our rights. We put a lot of work into this, and there's a binding agreement. The city has no right to lock these people out.
But the city says it has every right to keep Swayson's group out of the center.
He's got a letter in his hand signed by Mayor Ryan. Does that constitute a binding agreement?
Well, that's a question for our law department. They have advised me that it does not, that the only way that the city can convey property is through a formal permit agreement or a lease, which the Discovery Center was never granted.
So you're saying this letter really is not valid with your signature?
It's not a question of being valid. It's a question of whether or not it can be revoked.
Both sides in this dispute say the final resolution of this matter may eventually be determined by the courts. Paul Holly, News Source 13.
Swayson's group is considering legal action at this time. He says if a compromise is not reached soon, he is willing to file a lawsuit against the city. A dance at Soda Central High School ended in a melee last night. 4 adults were arrested, as were a number of students, and at least 3...
You're watching WGRC-TV, Rochester's Cable Channel 5. News 5 Rochester is closed captioned for the hearing impaired, courtesy of Hazelton Chevrolet Geo. News 5 Rochester with Doug Lizette, Leanne Carlson, meteorologist Sam Evans, and Bill Pucko on sports. This is the 10 o'clock report.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
This weekend's River Romance Festival hit some troubled waters.
A local group used the event to demonstrate its frustration with the city of Rochester. Tomorrow, that frustration materializes into a lawsuit against the city. Barbara Powers reports the lawsuit is being filed on behalf of Charlotte's Maritime Discovery Center.
The Maritime Discovery Committee leased this riverfront warehouse in April to begin developing a museum and educational media center. It opened briefly for the Harbor Fest in June and lost its lease in August when the city found building code violations. Environmental enthusiast Richard Swayson spent $10,000 of his own money on the center. He believes that the city and Ontario Beach Committee used code violations as a smokescreen to shut him down.
This combination of possible fraud, conspiring to defraud, breach of contract, and other unethical behavior on that group's part cannot and should not be tolerated.
He violated many of the terms of the permit, including code violations, fire safety violations, and when asked to correct, he didn't do that, so then he was excluded from the building.
The City and Ontario Beach Committee opened the warehouse today, adding salt to the wounds of Swayson and his volunteers. A steady stream of people admired the huge sand sculpture inside.
If this dispute is an omen for future riverfront development, there's no doubt that the city has some rough waters ahead. This battle is about much more than building code violations.
It's about the politics of deciding what the riverfront will be and how it will get there.
It's craziness. It makes no sense to me that people should let their egos and things get in the way of doing something good for the community.
Tomorrow, Richard Swayson will file a claim against the city for damages, including lost time. He left his job a year ago to work on this project. The Charlotte Neighborhood Association wants a powwow. All is not romantic on the riverfront. Barbara Powers, News 5, Rochester.
No word of an appeal from either Kodak or Polaroid in the patent infringement suit. On Friday, a federal judge ruled Kodak has to pay Polaroid $909 million to settle its instant camera case. Kodak officials expect this week to evaluate the settlement. And tomorrow morning, when the market opens on Wall Street, financial experts...
The Discovery Center Planning Committee formed this past winter to turn an old abandoned Charlotte warehouse into a highlighting area for the maritime history. Members of the group claim the city lended its support by leasing the building free of charge, then backed out of the deal. Eyewitness News reporter Robin DeWin has the details of this political struggle.
These people may be headed to court over this maritime museum. Members of the Discovery Center Planning Committee claim they spent their own time and money to rebuild this old warehouse, and now the city has changed the locks and taken the building over. Members say they'll sue.
The city, together with a small self-interested faction of a local group, sort of known colloquially as the Beach Committee, has acted unethically and illegally.
The group claims the city granted the planning committee a free lease for 18 months, but then without notice took over the building because the planning committee did not repair code violations. The city says the Charlotte Neighborhood Association asked that the city step in and take control.
The agreement went to the association, and the question is, so there were complaints about the facility, actions were not taken, so that we in effect did what the neighborhood association that represents the people of this area do.
The Ontario Beach Programming Committee, which is under direction of the city, is now operating the building. Both sides agree that the problems over the Maritime Discovery Center aren't just about code violations or this one building. It's about who's taking credit for waterfront development.
We're willing to work in cooperation with the Beach Committee and cooperation with the city. If the city wants to own the museum, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be worked out here. We're not saying that this should be just us and everybody out of the picture.
Residents of Charlotte say they want to see the Maritime Museum stay open as part of the $100 million redevelopment plan down here. Who is in control still has to be worked out.
We'll try to get together and put the disagreements on the table and try to work out a whole situation where everybody can be happy.
But members of the Discovery Center Planning Committee say they won't back down and will pursue their notice of claim until the city comes to a compromise. Robin DeWind, Eyewitness News in Charlotte.
A bizarre accident in Livingston County cost a Geneseo man his life this afternoon. Sheriff's deputies say 18-year-old Casey O'Keefe
say they spent thousands of dollars setting up the Maritime Discovery Museum with an understanding from the city they could proceed. The city apparently said not so fast. Museum volunteers say they may take the matter to court, filing a formal complaint against the city and Ontario Beach Committee.
They've broken both written and verbal agreements or contracts with the Discovery Center and its volunteers. They've misled the committee and misrepresented its activities on several occasions.
If there's a dispute down here, it's a question. It's an internal one between one or two individuals and the association itself.
Now, the Charlotte Community Association has now agreed to step in and try to mediate that situation. Monroe County Humane Society officials say a fire on the grounds last night hurt financially. At
Riverfest, what is this? This is River Romance Day, October 14th, 1983. We got the kids in the background, the press conference over, and I'm going to hit. Yeah, so I'm on now. This is the notice of claim given today, to be presented today to the mayor. It's now about 1:45 on, again, Sunday, River Romance Day, October 14th, 1990. We just had a press conference. I think Channel 8 was there, Channel 10 was there, I know the Democrat and Chronicle. And I have copies of the thing, whatever. End of whatever, you know, if it looks.
I got you cleaning up.
Good.
Getting prepared.
Is my nose running at the press conference?
I don't think so. Well, we'll see on the negative, on those black. I did black and white. I use black and white for two reasons. One, it's faster, and the other thing was.
Great. If you could document inside, I'll be happy to pay you, Neil, for whatever whatever costs.
I'll take this. Yes, sir. That's fair.
Things in trade, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't have lots of money. I mean,
I know.
Material costs.
Yeah, I got some ideas and some of my projects.
Good and locked up.
Yeah, Jerry, I know.
Yeah. That's live.
There was something I was going to get out of here, and I can't remember what.
How you doing? Good. Good to see you.
I'm working with the Discovery Center, documenting for these guys.
What Discovery Center?
Or the one over here. What do you call it? The building over here they locked out of. I give you literature.
No, I know all about it.
Oh, you do?
And I'll provide you some information you apparently don't have. Locked him out of it. He didn't meet codes. He had a permit to operate under the auspices of the Charlotte Beach Committee. I think you need to talk to other people.
Well, I've talked to other people. Well, I'm involved with both sides. I don't know yet, I've heard what I've heard, and I've also heard
But it's
from
nice
some
to
of them
see
too.
you. It's nice to see you here.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you here. I like your jacket.
No, I forget what your title was. Okay. Now, obviously, this maritime museum is becoming a bit of a sticky issue. Is it really that's the issue, or is it just the city's property and that's it?
Well, the issue at hand is who has control of it. Back in March, the city issued a permit to the committee with the concurrence of the Maritime Discovery Center. They at that time were unwilling to accept any liability for operation of the building. And we agreed that the building could go. Many of these
There's a lot of, he was under the impression that the insurance fall under the largest 2 cents.
There is insurance under the Ontario Beach Building.
But was he still responsible for?
That's not the point. When we have a volunteer group working on any city project, we ask them to do it in a responsible manner, to do it in a way that protects the safety of the public. In this case, that was not the case. So we took the action at the request of the Ontario Beach Building permit, and they are continuing to operate in that building.
It's claimed that was their space. They started using the other end of the building. Okay? Those code violations were way ahead of time. We fully intended to address them. We had our G&E down there to address those issues. And the city about locking us out, only the beach committee did. Okay? A whole variety of certain self-interest and things in the thing. It's about 3 people on the beach. It did. I can see right back here.
Years before the Ontario Beach Program Committee got it. So the city, since that fall, we've been giving them the keys to the building.
Well, you know, that may be, but basically what, for our purposes, we essentially have all the information that we need. I mean, as far as all that goes to the lot, that's really something we are not going to get involved in at all.
I think Canada, free trade, give a shot there.
Oh.
I know, but there's something going on here. I can't get it to work.
Here, I'll stop. Could you hold this? Might be out of battery already.
It could be.
Oh yeah, it probably is. I'm sure it is. Yep.
Point to all of the improvements taking place up here at the River Harbor area. It's hard to believe that it was only a little bit more than a year ago that Mayor Ryan announced the interim improvements that would be undertaken by the city in this area, and in a very short time we've seen quite a turnaround, and there's an awful lot of activity and excitement in terms of what's going on in the Charlotte area and in the River Harbor area in particular. In the works right from the beginning, we decided we should do something at this intersection to kind of spruce it up because it was such a major crossroads for the Ontario Beach River Harbor area. However, we didn't know exactly what to do in the beginning. We had to take a little bit of time to think about it, and with the assistance of a good number of people from the Charlotte area, particularly Mrs. Helen McPherson, who's with us today, what we wanted to do was something that would be both a combination by Melissa from that particular company, and they constructed it. I'm going to ask Mayor Ryan to come forward and say a few words. As you all know, Mayor Ryan is the individual who, when you have a good idea and everybody thinks it makes sense, you need some money and you need some support, and the person that is always willing to support us and always there to make sure that a good idea can become a reality. Mayor Tom Ryan.
Thank you, and you know, we just left the regatta over, and there were thousands of people there. And this, I think, between the regatta and this dedication here today is an appropriate way to end our River Romance weekend. We've had a terrific weekend. I think this planner is just symbolic of what we can do in terms of interim improvements as far as this area is concerned, so that more residents and more visitors can use our harbor area. We think that this is the most attractive area in terms of water development as far as the city is concerned, and I think the one that's got the most attention over the years. So we're very pleased to join the dedication today, and I think that the whole question of the projects that we have as far as the trails along the river development, is really indicative of what the concern we all have, I think, the state, the county, the city, in terms of quality of life in our community. So we're very pleased to join this dedication today, and thank all the volunteers who will participate in the planning, and I know in the future maintenance of this plan. Thank you very much.
As many of you may know, a substantial amount of the funds that we received for our waterfront redevelopment, in fact, approximately $4 million in special grants that we've received through the environmental
combined effort of the state, the city, and the county in this general area. And it's something, as a Charlotte resident, I've lived here all of my adult life, that I've, excuse me, waited for since 1969. I've been working towards some of the things that are happening since then. And I certainly pledge the support of the state for any further developments here. I would like to thank the mayor and the county for all the efforts they've put in to make this, our community, a better place, not only for us who live here, but for all the residents of Rochester and Monroe County.
Representing the Charlotte Neighborhood Association, President Jim Beebe. Jim is going to say a few words, I hope, talking about the ability of the city and the Neighborhood Association to work together on this project, because we really did receive a lot of guidance and assistance from the Neighborhood Association in putting this together. Jim?
Thank you very much, and yes, the Community Association is very proud to be involved in such things as this, and that our people, our members, and the residents of the community participate in things like this. We've tried to support Helen in some of her efforts around the flower plantings in front of the bathhouse and other things, and we're very proud to be involved in that manner. So thank you very much for inviting me today, and we hope to see you down here next summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Before we have the ceremonial planting of the first bulb, we're going to call on Father Whelan from Holy Cross Church to step forward and give a blessing to Father.
God our Father, you are the Father of creation and the Father of nature. You have blessed us with a beautiful lake and a beautiful river. You have given to our community many, many natural resources. We ask you to bless this garden, which adds to the beauty of this area. We ask you to help us all to appreciate your love and your goodness for the beauties that we see around us, and that we may be good stewards of your creation, and that we may take care of the land and the water that you have given us, and that we may give honor and glory to you by adding to its beauty and by preserving it so that all may use it in future generations. We ask your blessing not only on this garden, but upon the people of Charlotte, those of the city of Rochester, and the community of Monroe County, that all of us may be pleased with what has been done with our riverfront and with our lake, and that we may enjoy the blessings of God by coming and using these settings in order to praise him, in order to share his goodness and love with one another. We ask you to bless this garden and all of us in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you, Father. In deciding what kind of event to have today, we couldn't quite cut a ribbon or cover the whole thing up and somehow unveil it. So we thought a very symbolic approach would be to actually participate in planting something that we need to do today in order that it will bloom tomorrow. And as those of you who have gardens know, you can't put a bulb in the week before you want it. It's something you have to do well in advance. You've heard us refer to Mrs. McPherson a number of times. Mrs. Helen McPherson, a resident of the Charlotte area, who was very instrumental in giving us some assistance in terms of the types of plantings that might be particularly suitable for this particular facility, as well as lending her assistance in helping to maintain this in the future. And Mrs. McPherson is going to participate with Mayor Ryan in the planting of the first bulb. Mrs. McPherson, Mayor Ryan, Roger.
If there's any more physical work to that,
He wants to help. Okay. One for everyone. We'll cover them up anyway.
Some plants they go up.
Trying to find out how deep it is. Wonderful quote by Mrs. Burbank. Remember Mr. Burbank. Luther said, "We can do anything in America we set our minds and hands to doing. If we have one weakness more than things than another, it is the weakness of being satisfied and complacent about things. We need beautiful numbers and we need shapely and simple ornamental trees. We want fragrant flowers, 1,000 things that make life well worth living, in the shape of ornament and beauty, and things that to many of us seem superfluous, or at least not absolutely necessary. But they are just the same, aren't they?"
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see all of you again here for many more events as we continue the long-term and steady redevelopment of this area. Thank you very much.
Wonderful time.
Get on.
I mean, when I read the articles, they bring the streets.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
Mr. Mayor, we could just ask you. Press conference was held by the museum on the other side over there. They raised the point that they feel that they are unfairly being shut out of that facility by the city and by you.
Well, first of all, the agreement the city has.
I belong to a lot of people who say she wants to come over.
There's a dispute between the neighborhood association
She said, well, I'll be
by
right
the city, and
so I got my typewriter.
there's a very high level of
She could type it. Well, she
what the
hasn't
people
got
that
her
live in that community want.
or anything, but
And
she knows
generally,
where the
we
letters
assume
are.
that we're
And how much
representing
she
the
is
association,
approved. You know, how fast
particularly
are
if
you
it's
to
about.
find them?
So that's what we've done in this case. We've,
Patience.
in fact, taken the opinion and advice of the neighborhood association in terms of this. Yeah, I know. So that if there's a dispute down here, it's a question. It's an internal one between one or two individuals and the association. So,
But didn't you sign an actual agreement,
well, the
some kind of letter of understanding?
The agreement went to the association. And the question is, so there were complaints about the facility, actions are not taken, so that we in effect did what the neighborhood association that represents the people of this area do. So that if there is this difference of opinion, it's between people here on the lot and their association.
Mr. Mayor,
we can't make a decision that's going to respond to everybody. We generally have to go along with the association. So,
These volunteers said they number in the hundreds.
well, they've had numerous meetings between these people at City Hall as far as staff that's been involved. So there hasn't been any question of accessibility for anybody to talk to. It went all the way from the commission that was involved, department head, down through the staff that made decisions for neighborhood government. But that's the point of difference.
Doesn't this letter, though, again here, it has...
See it, letter. Yeah, that was a recommendation from the neighborhood association. That's what we
It says Discovery Center
you can't respond. That's true.
I never heard that it was a recommendation.
So there are a number of violations in the property that have been corrected.
So you're saying this letter really is not valid with your signature?
It's not a question of being valid. It's a question of whether or not it can be revoked.
I think you should answer that.
It was revoked.
But they were locked up.
That's what the issue is. We can't have a piece of property, whether or not it's leased to individuals, that have violations.
Doesn't this say to the volunteers in the city?
I'm not going to repeat the same thing again.
Well, okay, but
we have a choice of making it between the neighborhood association and some individuals that live down here, and in this case, we supported the neighborhood association. Now that's
right here.
That's our decision-making process. That's what we did.
Do you think it kind of says to volunteers throughout the city, though? What's the use of getting
I think it says to neighborhood associations, that people that belong to neighborhood associations, that we place a very high level of credibility on what they recommend to City Hall. And that's what neighborhood participation, neighborhood planning is all about. Thanks very much. I got a couple more events to get to. Nice talking to you.
Some agreement whereby the sand sculpture and the Discovery Center can flourish and can be completed, and that everybody who's working to it participate. We have not had overwhelming response or very encouraging from all parties who actually want to sit down and try to hammer out the situation. The offer that the Community Association made to the program committee, to Dick and to the city still stands, and we will try to get together and put the disagreements on the table and try to work out a whole situation where everybody can be happy. And we don't want to lose the sand sculpture, we don't want to lose the Maritime Discovery Center, but it all has to fit together within the scope of what the city's development plans are, what the building use plans are, who's involved, how it's operating, and all of those particulars have to be looked at and agreed to. As soon as everybody wants to sit down, the Community Association would be happy to get involved at that time.
This is just the first in the development down here, and already you're running into this kind of roadblocks. What does it say about the future of development?
That's a very good question. That's something that we, the Community Association, is concerned about. With the first parcel going up for development and the court area here being another parcel, probably in another 2 years will be up for development. That process is very important to us. We want the citizen participation. We want things like the sand sculpture to go forward. It's a matter of getting all the concerns and plans of the Terry Beach Program Committee and the city, Dick's group, etc., getting it all together and coming up with some workable concept that can work.
So this is over more than code violations. It's more
yes.
of a philosophical outlook on what happens here.
That's probably a fair assessment.
Where's the disagreement? What do you want and what do they want?
It's not what I want or what we want. I'm the Charlotte Community Association. We're not involved in this. The Ontario Beach Program Committee is the group that's out. We're trying to work things out. Yes, it's the Charlotte Community Association.
At a table and talk about what our needs are, what
we
your
were
needs are.
hoping. That's what we were hoping. Charlotte Community Association. CCA.
Jim, B-E-E-B-E?
Right.
Rep is flying to New York tomorrow. I've already made contact with New York directly, and we are not going to we're going to just develop the entire situation. Otherwise, he's going to come upon us.
Well, I say with that kind of a time, you're probably right.
We have no choice. I hate to do it, Jim. I'm going to talk with the local authorities. It's going to take tons more material. I'm going to say that the offer of the Community Association still stands to act as fiduciary. But I would hope when we have your word that you will be genuine fiduciary and not rubber stamp some other. I think that's critically important. And the other thing we are addressing.
all put together, so it just seems crazy. All this work we put into it, and there hasn't been a lot of
The city schools have actually.
But that's not a question.
No, but
Well, our problem too is the Ontario Planning Committee. We can't really sit down and talk to them because it feels like they don't want to sit down and talk with us. We need to set up a meeting.
Have you tried to talk to them?
Only Dick Swayze's been talking to him. We need to sit down as an organization.
Is anybody else?
the thing is, they keep saying
Wait. Has anybody else tried to sit down and talk to them?
the whole their responses and Dick's responses. It's the city right now with the lease. Nobody knows where it's being granted.
That's where the reclamation came from.
Well, why would
I
they?
I just feel. I think you ought to sit down. I got to take him.
You're off camera. You tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we really wonder if we should keep moving with it. I mean, for all the volunteers, we're professionals, engineers,
But
teachers.
none of you have tried to set up a meeting with the Ontario Beach
Multiple times. We absolutely have.
They've only talked to Dick about this.
We've tried many times.
Have you tried to sit down?
I have been to 30. Mayor Ryan, I've been to 30 meetings.
I don't want to get a running debate. Right?
Okay, yeah. I don't either. I don't want to be pushed to this.
But you ought to sit down, try and. The rest of you ought to try and sit down and find out what's going on.
In fact, Jim Beebe just offered to have everybody sit down.
We've tried. I called Jim about the mediation offer. Do you know what he was told by? Because we know the program committee is 3 people.
Well,
it's James and Frau and White.
No, wait.
And they offered not to.
Will you take a break for a minute?
Well,
have you people try to sit down with the Ontario Beach Planning?
We never had
many times.
Well, you ought to try.
We never had one. Well, we had
the whole crew. Okay, the whole group will try. Well, maybe it's time to try that.
Take a break. I mean, have they tried to sit down?
But a number of us have. I mean, it's.
It's a city lockout, though.
Yeah, you locked out.
Choice. That's correct.
Did you ask
He's cleaning his hands of it, but there's no logistics, there's nothing that has to do with the city. It's all of the beach committee. He's pushing it all off onto the individuals when the whole thing is legal matters with the city.
In fact, the city is the one that did the locking out, not the
other meetings. We've had multiple times to try to work things out. We've offered mediation. We wrote letters. That's in the package. That I think some of those are in the press package. If they're not, I'll be happy to send those letters to you. Every single document. We have worked openly, honestly, straightforwardly. We have invited everybody to our meetings. We started out working with the program committee, and it was only after Jim Beebe's record. It was after we realized that the program committee was just totally trying to dominate everything here in the village of Charlotte. The program committee is really 3 people, okay? That the chair. And those 3 individuals, one of whom is the director of recreation for the city, are really trying to dominate and control everything. And there's a lot of other organizations that are very upset by that domination here. We tried to work under them and with them for 9 months. We tried everything possible to meet with them, to mediate, for them to be reasonable. They've done things like one of the directors has threatened my life. I had to call the police down here about that director. He has used 4-letter words publicly at meetings with us. Again, you know, my life has been threatened. I've had to call the police. It's been a shame. That is not a particularly professional group. I hate to say it. It's not run. I've never seen any parliamentary procedure. I've never seen any votes. I've never seen any democratic activity in any of the program.
What do you think of him walking away from you just like that?
The mayor just walking away? It's typical of what he did before. The mayor, I've put a full year into this. The mayor has not given me 5 minutes. You've seen, that's the most time the mayor has ever given me on this issue, even though we turned to him only after frustration, after we turned first to the program committee. Secondly, Jim Beebe has been very reasonable. The CCA is trying to mediate and is trying to help, but they're even, the program committee is casting aside those efforts of mediation. We turned first to Bob Whiting. He wouldn't help. Bob is part of the group that really runs the program committee. It is not a democratically run organization, and it does use many thousands of dollars of our taxpayers' money, okay? It should be accountable to the taxpayers. There are serious questions of accountability and other questions considering the way that organization is run, okay? And even members of the Lighthouse had problems in the past with that same organization. Other organizations in Charlotte had trouble with that organization, okay? The mayor wrote the letter of commitment, which one of the press people has to to us as the Maritime Discovery Center Planning Committee, and he's totally denying that now.
You compare the two committees, there's about 100 of us, and there's 3 of them. It's incredible.
And publicly.
They even said publicly.
The mayor.
They said they had 8 active
members.
people. They've been incorporated for 5 years. They have 8 active people after 5 years. Why? Because they don't run it democratically. They don't bring in people. They don't have things open and honest and professionally done. And they discourage and denigrate volunteer efforts here in the community.
To say it's an individual organization. Okay, right.
Take care.
So it's an individual organization. You can
So we got him again.
So I don't know whether you I didn't.
Charlotte, you meet at the association.
We have many times. Jim Beebe was there. Jim admitted. We invited Jim and the community association, anyone, to join our committee to attend all meetings. We clearly had a widely published and distributed mission and goal statement, vision statement, purpose statement. Those statements delineate everything we wanted to do, everything we tried to do. They were accepted and agreed to by every layer of community organization and political organization and government here in Charlotte. They were distributed to everybody. We've invited everybody to our meetings and stuff. Jim Beebe has. Yeah, Jim Beebe has attended a couple of meetings. He's helped. Jim is a good man.
Do you think he's going to be able to bring the sides together?
Jim has tried to mediate. There's letters of mediation. Jim, there may even be in your packets. There was a letter of September 17th from Jim Beebe, and I have one of those here, where he attempted to. When I called Jim on the phone the other day, before we served a legal notice on the papers, Jim said, Dick, the program committee is taking the stance that they don't even want to mediate. And I tried 1,000 times with the program committee. I hate to say it, but the chairman of the program committee has real severe problems.
And that is, who is that chairman?
It's Jim Beebe.
They're still doing the
He's not the city.
No, the program committee and the lockout. Why were we
That's
locked
a
out? And the program
separation of the two groups right there. I mean, just locking our group out.
Just seizing it, just stopping it, locking it out, casting us aside.
And the mayor just
3 people that dominated. 3 people.
Mr. Jenkinson is in
Ferraro Jenkinson, Ferraro the vice chairman, and Bob Whiting from the city totally want to dominate that committee. They have 2 other directors, one of whom has threatened my life on occasion. Okay, who I had to call the police to down there. They're doing a personality slur on me. You know, just as the city is sort of doing with Gail Porter. I think that there are parallels between the Gail Porter wanted an independent voice, wouldn't be a rubber stamp. They did a personality slur on her, a 24-page thing from Lou Cash to destroy her character and personality.
All right, well, that's kind of getting off the track here. But anyway, okay, well,
the mayor did say
but
there's
more to it. Did you get the whole press package?
We have the whole thing, and we're going to have to get going, or else we're going to miss our deadline.
Your name again?
Ron Plants.
Yeah. Okay, Ron.
Okay, if there's any further?
Okay. Sure. Great. We're trying. Okay. Thank you very much. Although I'll show you although sometimes I'm going to show you our political cartoon that has you in it, John in it.
All right.
Jim is a good guy. People really try to help our cause. I wish, Jim, that you had attended some of the meetings when you said you would earlier in April. I understand you had health problems, so that's forgivable. but nonetheless, given all the work we had, I wish we had
Jim made a good suggestion. He said that what we should do is we should get some people from the Maritime Discovery Center that are on the committee and write a letter to the Community Association in Charlotte and set up a meeting with the OPBC. And, you know, we're not trying to exclude you out of this thing, but we have to represent ourselves, too, people that are involved into this.
Sure, because
they're... sit at the table, you know, calmly, and just discuss what our needs are, what our plans are, and what their plans are, because we don't know what they plan to do with that building. If they want to make a restaurant out of it, they want to make a party house, tell us that, you know?
Sure,
what are they doing with it?
There's some hidden.
Otherwise, it's a dead space.
What I indicated was that if the group wanted to write a letter to the Community Association requesting that we set up a meeting with the program committee, and that maybe 7 or 8 people from your group would be on that group, then I would go to the program committee and request and say, here, I've got an overture, I want to sit down and talk. Dick won't be there, and we sit down and talk, and see what they
On the other hand,
Well,
not be there.
from the
That's-
friction, head-to-head personality situation.
Hey, I'm perfectly willing not to participate, just to listen. But to be excluded.
You could see they
Oh,
started
no,
yelling
I don't
right
think
here.
you should be excluded at all.
Yeah, to be excluded, that's a terrible thing. I mean, for me to be left out, that's the worst technique. That's the worst. That's what they're doing to Gail Porter on the Environmental Commission stand. They separated her. She was an open voice. Okay, they separated. They did a character slam, and that's what they did.
Without the friction between you and Bill there, and if you have, say, 7 or 8 people from your group who can talk for the group and represent the group and ask the questions and try to get the answers that they want to get and try to start a dialogue,
so you have it all there.
that's not excluding you out, that's just saying.
But the thing of it is, I don't mind not commenting, but I think I should be in Bill's presence to hear what's being represented. I would not comment.
I'll take any offer to the program committee, but I have a feeling that that's going to be the stumbling block, where the two heads are going to butt and they're going to say no, there's not going to be any production.
Sure, if it's a recorded
meeting,
sure.
I think in
If
good
it's a
faith,
recorded
you really
meeting.
need to do that and have it recorded.
If it's a recorded meeting, sure, as long as it's recorded.
And that other people are making those
Dick, also, if
decisions
you
are
have any
involved in
questions
it.
that you want to bring up to them, you can give it to us and we can present it
Sure.
to them.
Oh, Stan, I have no problem with that if it's a recorded. If it's a recorded, it's an odd setup. It's already adds to the undermining, and you're right. Yeah.
Well, then just say you don't know.
Wait a minute. An important issue. Wait, hold on a minute. Important issue. Why it's been a rolling committee, Jim? Because we've been denigrated, demoralized, and that hurts volunteer effort. It has driven away good people. People who either didn't have the time to understand it, who didn't want the conflict. That's why our committee has had to roll. But now we have people who understand the whole history, who have taken time to see the whole history, Jim, who've read those 110 miles that we have, who are aware that we've had contacts with 30 organizations, who know the depth, the quality of
And my point is that those people who can ask the same questions you can ask, if you prepare them correctly, they can ask the same questions you can ask, and it'll be in an atmosphere that is not head-to-head, head-biting situation between you and Bill, and, you know, the meeting at the library didn't go anywhere.
Ellen, did you hear? Ellen, you're
sorry.
into this. Do you know Jim Beebe, president of the Community Association? Yeah, this is Ellen Carpenter. Ellen has a pretty good background in I would say in mediation and politics and that kind of thing. So what Jim is suggesting is a meeting that I don't attend with the program committee. I think we have to think about that. I'm perfectly willing if it's recorded to do whatever.
That might be a last resort, though, if they can agree, if there's any way they'd agree to a meeting with
Because I see what you and you towards them.
But on the other hand, see, Sal, I agree with your point, but I agree with Sal's point.
I'm going to let you discuss it, because that's my offer, and I've got my wife.
I don't think. Hey, but it's more. What's also important, Jim, is that NISTA grant is in the balance today. Okay. We need to know. I mean, flying to New York this morning, Monday morning.
Right.
This is not an issue that can be set aside. It's $30,000 or $25,000 because Bill's work reduced it from 30 to 25. But that's an issue that has to be decided now, Martha. And if we're to be responsible members of a committee, we at least have to understand the current issues. And I think we all have to be here with.
The Community Association, we're willing to be the fiduciary if NISTA requests it or the Ontario Beach Program Committee requests it.
Yeah.
I say that because their name is the applicant.
I think, Jim, maybe at this point, it almost behooves you to contact the program committee.
They're not going to request it, so I'm not.
They won't do it. So you think it's not even worth? It's not even worth your trying to save that money for
It's worth you bringing it to NISTA and saying, is that, can we work it that way? But
do you realize, though, Jim, if I have to bring the whole situation to NISTA to delineate it without pussyfooting around and filling the thing with euphemisms, that'll kill the grant.
Maybe.
And so I would say that if I were the president of the Community Association to save that sculpture, I would at least be willing to go to the program committee at the 11th hour and say, is there some opening? Because that's going to kill the grant. And I think that you shouldn't cast aside as president of the Community Association. Well, I'll do what I can do, but I appreciate the offer of the fiduciary.
want to work with those people? Do you actually really want to join forces with those people?
What, with program?
No,
With
the
those-
Ontario Beach.
Yeah, would you really want to work with those men if you...
Oh, right,
No.
You could, there's no way
their whole game is control and power. We would never get...
to work with them to get the clean separation. Because they have been in the building.
Oh, in time to get the separation,
It's
yes,
like
Jen, up to that
city's
point.
the landlord,
I mean,
they're the
it's out of the
sub-landlord.
question that you would ever join forces again.
Well,
I
but
think
they...
not personality-wise, not with those three guys.
No, the thing of it is, Jen, they came out with a public mandate, and so we at least have their words that say that they will allow complete independence. They really didn't intend to. They had to come out with that mandate in order to undermine what we had done, saying, well, look, we're saying here on paper that we'll allow complete independence as long as they meet those criteria. We're meeting all of those criteria, and now they're even less willing to let us be independent.
Of course
so
not,
that was
they
a
see what's
sham
happening.
statement. That was a sham statement. So
it is a thing between the two.
Right here, we move.
We'll talk to you. Give us a call. You decide what channel.
Okay.
We can tape a channel for
oh yeah, because
Yeah, we'll try.
because all four came, didn't they? Five.
Yeah,
we
we
don't
can
have
do.
five.
We can do 10.
I can do 2. You do 10, and I'll do 13.
Okay.
11 o'clock, too.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe.
Well, we could try that.
You don't think it'll make
Fair
6?
enough.
They probably won't make
Oh,
6.
to try to do both.
Yeah.
What, you think it'll make 6? Yes.
Oh yeah, it'll make sense. That's been part of the problem. So they're accused like Mike Delp.
That's our problem. We step forward too much.
No, not at all, because we need the balance.
He said the same
Jen.
thing
We have
though
no
when we
one.
talked to him individually on the camera. He still said the same thing. He's pushing it off the train.
Right,
On the program.
Like a family
One
fight.
against the other. But you see, the fact is, he wrote the letter to us.
Exactly. Your name is right on
The
top.
lockout. What,
Here, I'll just
what
give it a little.
did he do that already?
You don't have to tape all this, Neil. Say lies publicly enough. People will just start believing them because they're officials, and you want to believe officials. Now, you don't want to believe authority figures when they lie or
But I mean, there's so
stupid,
many ways
you
they
know?
can weasel a lot of things. Always. It seems like we can always weasel.
Not now, because the mayor has to come to court.
Okay.
He's perjured.
He already got
lies.
this.
Tomorrow, because we can't serve. We didn't want to open it to the public. You see, that's totally spurious, Jen. They're talking code violation is spurious because I had said publicly in the paper we're going to close. They gave us I have the signed documents that said we could open as a special event through HarborFest. I didn't have time to. You know, people they tear you in 100. I called Tom Argust and I was angry. Janny, do you realize their misuse of those 25 phone lines? That's a FBI matter. I mean, and don't tell that to anybody. Because I didn't do it. And it's meant, Jenny, let me center. I was thinking well, I don't know. Further, by a letter dated September 11th, Whiting and subsequent Mayor Ryan, the city illegally repudiated the mayor's April 3rd letter. You see that? Yeah? Granting claimants the right to use the half illegally indicated that the claimant's property would be confiscated without compensation in due process of law. Okay? You see? Claimants damage. Claimants have sustained substantial damages, including loss of effort and property, loss of use of the center, damage to their reputations, and interruption of the operation. He had a whole lot of rental property. So you see, granted, he wants to be the godfather. Schlatt, granted, he wants power and stuff like that.
Let me ask you this.
Jenkins, Harbor Beach Club. My little, didn't you see my little cartoon with flowers standing under?
What time?
We were gonna come back. I was gonna bring some petitions, Stan.
Well, wait a minute. They're going to lock up any minute, so...
I think there's so little in there. They've been raking it off all along. Make an issue out of that. I think we should make a claim. We should notice. Did you photograph the money?
Yes, I actually did.
Yeah.
And notice there's the word "your" in there somewhere.
Yeah, your
That's
discussion.
money lost.
Look at you. You don't have to take it.
Yeah, but the fact is
take
that
it.
we could. Oh, well, somebody. Yeah, sure. If
your
anybody wants to
property.
take it,
You take it.
sure. As a member of the committee, if you feel it won't jeopardize, but I don't want little things, Stan, to get in the way of the big. We have $1 million claim going here, and for $20 to maybe jeopardize a claim because they use that to say we're underhanded.
What's in there?
They're claiming it's theirs. You see, I know it's not, but money is a different
Stick
thing.
your head out the
When I
window.
say I took,
Stick your head out the door.
but if one of us has got this is good.
Involving a building and an angry waterfront developer. The city of Rochester may soon find its way into court, a dispute involving a building and an angry waterfront developer. Paul Holly explains in this report.
I have been to 30. I've been to 30 meetings. I don't want to get a running debate.
Okay, yeah. I don't either. I don't want to be. This confrontation between Mayor Tom Ryan and the local developer revolves around this building. It's the Southport Warehouse. Dick Swayson and a group of volunteers say they have a binding agreement with the city, giving them access to the building. Swayson says he spent thousands of dollars to help get the Charlotte Maritime Discovery Center off the ground.
The city never said in their letter to the program committee that they would change the locks. They simply said it wouldn't be open to the public. They seized our possessions, our property, changed the locks, and closed us down.
This is a copy of the letter signed by Mayor Ryan, a letter Swayson's group says is a binding legal contract.
We want to enforce our rights. We put a lot of work into this, and there's a binding agreement. The city has no right to lock these people out.
But the city says it has every right to keep Swayson's group out of the center.
He's got a letter in his hand signed by Mayor Ryan. Does that constitute a binding agreement?
Well, that's a question for our law department. They have advised me that it does not, that the only way that the city can convey property is through a formal permit agreement or a lease, which the Discovery Center was never granted.
So you're saying this letter really is not valid with your signature?
It's not a question of being valid. It's a question of whether or not it can be revoked.
Both sides in this dispute say the final resolution of this matter may eventually be determined by the courts. Paul Holly, News Source 13.
Swayson's group is considering legal action at this time. He says if a compromise is not reached soon, he is willing to file a lawsuit against the city. A dance at Soda Central High School ended in a melee last night. 4 adults were arrested, as were a number of students.
Weekend's River Romance Festival hit some troubled waters.
A local group used the event to demonstrate its frustration with the city of Rochester. Tomorrow, that frustration materializes into a lawsuit against the city. Barbara Powers reports the lawsuit is being filed on behalf of Charlotte's Maritime Discovery Center.
The Maritime Discovery Committee leased this riverfront warehouse in April to begin developing a museum and educational media center. It opened briefly for the Harbor Fest in June and lost its lease in August when the city found building code violations. Environmental enthusiast Richard Swayson spent $10,000 of his own money on the center. He believes that the city and Ontario Beach Committee used code violations as a smokescreen to shut him down.
This combination of possible fraud, conspiring to defraud, breach of contract, and other unethical behavior on that group's part cannot and should not be tolerated.
He violated many of the terms of the permit, including code violations, fire safety violations, and when asked to correct, he didn't do that. so that he was excluded from the building.
The City and Ontario Beach Committee opened the warehouse today, adding salt to the wounds of Swayson and his volunteers. A steady stream of people admired the huge sand sculpture inside.
If this dispute is an omen for future riverfront development, there's no doubt that the city has some rough waters ahead. This battle is about much more than building code violations.
It's about the politics of deciding what the riverfront will be and how it will get there.
It's craziness. It makes no sense to me that people should let their egos and things get in the way of doing something good for the community.
Tomorrow, Richard Swayson will file a claim against the city for damages, including lost time. He left his job a year ago to work on this project. The Charlotte Neighborhood Association wants a powwow. All is not romantic on the riverfront. Barbara Powers, News 5, Rochester.
No word of an appeal from either Kodak or Polaroid in the patent infringement
house into a highlighting area for the maritime history. Members of the group claim the city lended its support by leasing the building free of charge, then backed out of the deal. Eyewitness News reporter Robin DeWitt.
Street Financial
Discovery Center Planning Committee formed this past winter to turn an old abandoned Charlotte warehouse into a highlighting area for the maritime history. Members of the group claim the city lended its support by leasing the building free of charge, then backed out of the deal. Eyewitness News reporter Robin DeWitt has the details of this political struggle.
These people may be headed to court over this maritime museum. Members of the Discovery Center Planning Committee claim they spent their own time and money to rebuild this old warehouse,